guys! So, there is quite a lot going on with our favorite games these days. World of Tanks is rolling out new vehicles left, right and center, while they also officially confirmed for the first time ever, if I know correctly, that we can finally expect a general artillery revamp. While this is great news for all parties concerned, and I will definitely keep a close eye on the news about this, one thing is certain. People will always find an excuse to whine about something, no matter the actual changes. So, fingers crossed, and let's see. Things are not much calmer on the seas either, as World of Warships, now fully released, is about to roll out the first parts of the German and Russian tech trees. And last but not least, by the 8th of October we should be able to get our hands on Armored Warfare Open Beta as well. Wow! Just simply not enough hours in the day now, are there? But let's not keep the guest of today's review waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to present to you a fan favorite, the true king of derp, the KV-2. This thing is so much fun that you can mostly look past its many weaknesses. You might have some frustrating gameplays, sure, but then you get to one-shot a tier 6 heavy and suddenly all is forgiven. Blasting the opposition with huge caliber guns will just never go out of style, I guess. As usual at the end of the review, I have prepared an ace tanker gameplay for you, this time also with a Top Gun. If you would like to jump ahead to the aggressive bits, that timestamp stands ready in the description below. As for the rest of us, let's have a look at the history of this mobile cannon of doom. The KV series, named after the Soviet Defense Commissar Kliment Voroshilov, were a series of heavy tanks introduced to the Red Army as of 1939 and 1940. While the KV-1 was designed to neutralize enemy tanks, the KV-2 heavy artillery tank, fitting a monstrous 152mm howitzer, was indeed meant to blast enemy fortifications more as a support tank. Both of them were incredibly powerful in the beginning, as the widely used early Panzer III and IV versions just couldn't even scratch them. There are several stories of lone KV tanks halting the enemy advancement with only some infantry support. The Germans just didn't have the weapons to fight them up until about 1942, with probably the exception of the 88mm flak gun. But even using this gun they were complaining about the many ricocheting shots. As the war raged on, however, the limitations of the KV-2 became more and more apparent. In order to fit this monster of a gun, the Soviet engineers created this huge box of a turret weighing 12 tons in itself, which was not only a massive target, but it was also just too much for the engine. It was simply not designed for so much weight. The KV-2 series was slow and plagued by mechanical problems, which also led to its production being halted after the first about 250 rolled out of the factories. Today, the single surviving KV-2 can be seen in the Central Armed Forces Museum in Moscow. So, this heavy tank was a real monster on the battlefield, at least in the early years, that is. Question is, how did they translate all of this into the game? Well, at least on a larger scale, I think they modeled it pretty well. It's slow and clumsy, and does not hold up well against higher tier tanks at all. But my god, when you fire that gun and it hits the enemy, they will lick their wounds in the next 2 games as well. Speaking about hitting things, let's inspect that 152mm Doom cannon a little closer. As it was meant to eradicate enemy fortifications, it's no wonder that it literally disintegrates lower tier tanks completely. 910 average damage at tier 6 is crazy with capital letters, especially as the average penetration at 86mm is not half bad either. It's no wonder then that you will have to give up quite a lot for all this firepower. Before we look at the drawbacks, which by the way will take up most of the remaining review actually, let's hang around a little bit with the ammunition choice. Apart from the regular HE ammunition, you also get 2 types of armor-piercing rounds. The regular one has 700 average damage with 110 penetration, while the premium rounds have an increased penetration at 136mm. Now, I read in several articles to use AP for lower tier opponents, but I don't really agree with this suggestion. The AP penetration is not that much better in this case, and with the horrible, or let's say Soviet accuracy, you will miss a fair amount, some of which might still could have been kills using HE. Also, with your long-ass reload, you just can't switch between shells on the fly. and this kind of AP penetration is super weak even at your own tier. So, my personal suggestion is to go HE all the way, but of course if you think differently, do let us know in the comments. Right, moving on to the main characteristics of the gun, it's about as derpy as it gets. Let's see. Huge alpha damage? Check. Extreme inaccuracy at 0.6 meters? Check. A very long game time of 4 seconds? Check. And finally, a super low rate of fire at only 2.5 rounds per minute. That's right, that's a 24-second reload on the front lines. Check. It's no wonder then that even on paper your DPM is mediocre at best, and you won't do full damage often in real time at all. Either some of it will be mitigated by the enemy armor, or the enemy will be dead long before your average damage potential could be realized. Or, quite simply, you will miss with 0.6 meters accuracy. And, unfortunately, that's not all. The gun has a serious limitation in terms of maximal elevation as well, at only 12 degrees. So, if you have to shoot someone on a ridge above you, you might be in real trouble. At least the gun depression at 7 degrees is not bad, even if on the average. Swiftly moving on to protection, the 810 HP at your disposal is actually one of the lowest in its tier. And you really have to be careful not to waste it, as your armor won't be much trouble for most of your opposition. You have the hull of the tier 5 KV-1 with a much larger and overall worse turret, so you can imagine how that adds up on the battlefield. Looking into the armor zones from the front, you can see that this thing is riddled with weak spots. The only tough parts are the beak of the tank and the gun mantlet, where it can reach up to and exceeding 200 mm of armor as well. But if you avoid those, you have pretty much green light to penetrate it anywhere else with a half-decent gun. The best part to do so is probably that huge flat surface around the gun mantlet, as it has only 75 mm of protection. You don't even have to bother with the small weak points on the upper plate that are only 60 mm thick, but are more difficult targets. From the sides, just go for the hull above the tracks or the side of the turret, both of which are super flat and only 75 mm thick. And finally, from the rear, you have that huge flat hatch on the back of the turret with only 60 mm of armor, or you could also shoot the ass of the tank with about 70 mm of protection there. But the real fun begins when you get to shoot down on these things from above, as the engine deck is only 30 mm thick. So, you can switch to HE and give it some of its own medicine. And best of all, because of the limited gun elevation, they can't even return fire a lot of the times. Concerning mobility, I don't have many good news either, I'm afraid. The 35 km/h top speed is actually not that bad, but the engine can't really cope with all this weight, so it will take a long time to get to that speed. And let's not even mention going up hills. Both hull traverse at 18 degrees per second and turret traverse at 16 degrees per second are painfully slow as well. But finally, at least the view range at 330 meters and signal range at 440 meters are alrightish, even if nothing special. So, that's a very long list of negatives indeed. Does that huge alpha damage still make it worthwhile? Well, if you are a gunho like me, you already know the answer, I guess. I probably lost you back at the 910 average damage, and you are still sitting there rubbing your hands together going nom 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 nom. Despite all its inflexibility, you can still make it work reasonably well most of the times, especially as you can really hurt even T-rates a lot. And then there will be battles where you will just dominate one-shotting everything. The things that you will need for sure are a gun rammer, a gun laying drive, and vents to fight the long-ass reload and aim times. And brothers in arms would be surely a great help as well. You should also play very carefully and with support. If you go alone, you die. It's as simple as that. You might take one of them with you, but anyone with 2 brain cells will rush you the moment you fire, and you won't get a second shot most of the time. So, that's a quick look on the KV-2. I think it's time to translate all these statistics into some quality ass-kicking. Alright, so here we are on steps. It's a standard battle and we are top tier, yay! Unfortunately, we are top of a, well, looking at the colors, not so strong team, and the opposition has a few reasonably good players, so this should be a challenge. But lucky for us, we are sitting in a monster of a heavy tank with a seriously derpy derp gun. So, hopefully, we get to blow them up one by one. Now, in the beginning, I moved towards the typical heavy engagement zone, which is around the 1 and 2 lines. And, well, the team distribution is not really promising at all. At the moment, oops, and that was actually a bounce from a small caliber gun. KV-2 is not one of the stealthiest of machines, as you can imagine, so probably there was a scout in the middle road spotting me, and luckily it was not one of the tank destroyers that put one shot into the side of me. So, as I was saying, team distribution, look at that shit. I'm trying to ping the map, tell my team to get their asses into gear and join me on the front, but unfortunately most of my heavies, well, sorry, most of our heavies are bumbling around the tank destroyer camp zone, and they are focusing heavily on doing nothing. Now, what I do here is, let's say, aggressive, foolhardy maybe. This is a very dangerous position right now. If the enemy is rushing this flank, I can be easily outflanked. Now, at least I'm moving into this position and waiting for the support, and as I see that the enemy... Sorry, that my VK is moving into position behind me, I get to advance a little bit further. Luckily there is no artillery in this match, so I should be fairly safe, and oh, there is a Churchill. And that's a good shot. Let's quickly go back into cover. Don't forget, it's a 24-second reload. And AMX, what are you doing? I don't think that's the way it should be played. Oh, come on, Churchill. 2! There we go. 2-shot Churchill tree. It's not bad. Now let's advance carefully. We don't want to be surprised by someone while still reloading. Now there is an ARL, and oh, there is an A43 as well, which can be dangerous. Quickly in the sides, that should keep him tracked, which gives us time to reverse back into cover and reload. And AMX, come on, get the hell out of here. And unfortunately everybody is still in the back sniping, or slowly melting away. And that was unlucky. He is left with 23 health. But look at how our health is melting away. It's really, really dangerous to go ahead and face all these enemies, so let's pull back a bit. These guys seem determined to go around and get shot, and unfortunately the M6 surprises us, and we get a shot from the AR-44 as well, and another one from the M6. We are left on 44 health. This is not good at all. And this is how easily you can lose your health even if you are a top tier tank. The KV-2 is not well armored at all. Now, also looking at the map, things are not looking rosy. Unfortunately on the other fronts as well, but what's this? It's a Matilda. Well, I think it's time to send him home for a tea. Oh yeah, that's what this gun does. I mean, look at this, we are already on 1700 damage, and we are just getting warmed up. And we have to be careful here. The little elevation at the end of this road is a prime camping spot for mediums and tank destroyers, so should be careful. We are a one hit for pretty much anything on the enemy team. But nobody is trying to take us out, so we get to prey a little bit on these enemy heavies. Oh, almost reloaded. Come on. Oh, if we can get the side of that M6. Oh, he's coming this way. Let's pre-aim. Oh yeah! Well, the only Bad thing about that one was that he was not full health. We would have probably one-shotted him if he was, but it seems all but our flank has now fallen. Still, at least we managed to pull the scores back a little. And, oh, that's lucky. The enemy decided not to cap. 5 Steward just running into me. Luckily it's so light that we didn't lose any health. And that is where the accuracy of this gun, or let's say inaccuracy, rears its ugly head. Now that SU is fairly well protected. So it will be a really tricky shot. Come on. Do it again, please. Do it for Daddy. Come on. No, that was never going to hit. It must be probably more reasonable to play the lottery than taking those shots. Luckily, both of the tanks coming on this side have been neutralized. So it's time to peek out again. I really have a feeling that this front will be pushed from the enemy side, and oh, there is a Stug on 3 health, but he is easily capable of taking us out. And look at the turret rotation speed. I mean, it's just like it's glued into its place. Definitely turn the turret and the hull at the same time. Otherwise, it will take ages. Oh, and that's not good. There's the Cromwell, and he's one of the best players on the enemy team. So that will be tricky. Come on, Stug. Where are you? Okay, so Cromwell will be on that spot, which I mentioned previously. There he should be. I'm pretty certain that he's still there. Okay, he pops up. Side shot. Oh yeah. That was a very important kill. If he would have been on the move, he could have eradicated us easily. But with this, there is only a Chinu and an AT-2 on the remaining on the enemy team, both of which are dangerous targets, but oh man, this just never gets old. Now we have to be careful here. The AT-2, it has a very weak popcorn gun. Well, weak in terms of alpha damage, but the actual penetration is not bad at all, so we have to be careful. He can really easily one-shot us. And his gun is accurate enough that he can do so quite easily. Luckily, he doesn't seem to be one of the best players, so even though we missed our first shot, we should have another chance. And in hindsight, we should have been side-scraping here, but luckily he does not take his chances, and we get to get a huge shell into him. So that should hopefully enable our team to mop it up. We already have our top gun. Let's play it safe. And the VK rolls in to claim the last kill. KV-2 madness. So, wow, that was a close one. But in the end we were able to make the most of this rather nice matchup and finish with a Top Gun, High Caliber and Ace Tanker victory. Dishing out well over 3000 damage and killing 6 of the enemy tanks netted us almost 54,000 credits and almost 1500 base XP. To no surprise, this was well enough to put us on top spot by damage done, kill secured and XP earned as well, and a bit of a carry was indeed needed, as over a third of our team managed to close this match with 0 damage done, which is even worse than usual. All in all, we fired 14 shots, scored 11 hits and all of them penetrated as well. Especially in your own tier, this gun is just crazy good. It's also worth to mention that from the 9 rounds received, 6 of them penetrated us, so even when you are top tier you have to be extra careful. So, that was my take on everyone's favorite KV-2. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, thank you for considering giving it a like or sharing it. Next up, it's time for some torpedo action with the Isokaze, the tier 4 Japanese destroyer in World of Warships, and I will be also playing the crap out of the open beta of Armored Warfare. so a video about that is highly likely as well, if I like it. Take care guys, enjoy the rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you in one of the next videos.